Jayne, one of the OG Overwatch content creators, has come back. Well, kind of. So for those who don't know, Jayne was not only one of the biggest content creators, but content pioneers back in the days of Overwatch 1. I guarantee that at least one Overwatch content creator you watch, whether it be me, Flats, J3, Apply, SuperTF, Spylo, etc., were directly inspired by Jayne. He basically walked so we could run. I actually made a video on Jayne's disappearance over 2 years ago, and it's one of my personal favourite videos that I've ever made, so if you want a full dissection of Jayne's past before 2022, I recommend you go watch that video. But what I'm going to do is do a quick recap of that video, add in the additional events that have happened past that video, and look at where Jayne's at right now. So Jayne really came to fruition back in 2018, where he pioneered the educational genre of Overwatch content by uploading tons of VOD reviews of mostly players in around the gold to diamond range of ranks. I did mention in that video that he became Team Canada's head coach in both 2018 and 2019, and then he eventually joined the Dallas Fuel as an assistant coach. But what I didn't mention before is that prior to all that pro experience, Jayne actually did coach High Open Division, Tier 3, and Tier 2 contenders teams. A lot of people like to bring up that Jayne just got a job in the Overwatch League because of his massive name in the scene and how well known he was, but he said himself that he basically acted as a guest coach, offering Tier 3 and Tier 2 teams some private help so he could showcase what he truly knew about the game.
I started working with NA Tier 3 and Tier 2 teams on kind of like a guest coach basis. So I knew quite a few people in the scene, and I was like, hey, you know what, let me drop by, let me help out for a session, let me do one robot review, let me try and help you out. So instead of committing myself to one team, I kind of team hopped.
However, through 2019, the Dallas Fuel underperformed to a similar level that they did in 2018, and it took quite the toll on Jayne's mental health. After that 2019 season, Jayne got into hot water with Chipsa, but that situation has been resolved. And then after that, the infamous and timeless Jayne invented esports clip was born.
52 seconds ago, esports is the future, but it's not going to invent itself. Jayne is going to invent esports!
Then, after Jayne left the Dallas Fuel, he had a ton of projects on his plate. One was his contract to Facebook Gaming, which went as well as you'd expect. Another was The Jayne Show, which had a pretty big production team and some swanky graphics, but that project was short-lived. Another was called Metaverse Industries, a management agency for online influencers, but again, that was short-lived. Another project was actually just his own content on YouTube, which still pulled respectable numbers back then, which honestly, I wish I could pull. Another was Pico Overwatch, which was a coaching organisation that featured Jayne, Tickety, and other coaches, but the project shut down since I assume the business side of things was unsustainable. And finally, the last project that I think he was working on was some kind of ARG game, which never came out, at least to my own knowledge of things. A small correction to that original video was that I mentioned Jayne was at Meta Group, which I thought was separate from Metaverse Industries, but it wasn't. However, I'll get to his comment later in the video. It's also worth noting that in November 2020, Jayne had confirmed that he was diagnosed with bipolar. So all of that information is accurate up to March 2022. But just a few months later, on June the 20th, 2022, Jayne had gone missing. In fact, I made a quick, short video about the situation the moment I found out, and thankfully, he was found safe a few days later. What I found quite heartwarming is that massive streamers like Adept and XQC had voiced their own concern about the situation. Considering XQC was actually coached by Jayne in the 2019 World Cup for Canada, it is nice seeing this connection come back around. Approximately 2 months later, which is also around 2 months before the release of Overwatch 2, Jayne drops a series of tweets that got a pretty big amount of traction on Twitter, especially considering his hiatus, and the tweets read as follows. New app, but this is Jayne from Overwatch. Wasn't planning on making a post, but recently regained access to this account, and it felt disingenuous to lurk quietly and people being worried about me. So here's where I'm at. I'm alive and okay, but not back and might not be. I've been in the hospital for about a month now and should be discharged in about a week, but I have no idea where I'm gonna go or what I'm gonna do afterwards. It's been a very lonely and isolating year for me, and I don't know if streaming again would hurt me or help me. I know Overwatch 2 is right around the corner, but I'm not sure if I'll be ready for it, even in the best case scenario. The logistics of finding a place to stream from, regaining access to my lost accounts, and replacing the infrastructure that I lost access to is daunting. That being said, I also need to find a way to support myself and find a group of friends or social circle. So if you've got a job that you think I'd be good at, or if you've got a spare room I would enjoy my company, send me a DM. Really anything goes as long as it's in Canada. It was nice seeing that some of the biggest content creators showed their love in the threads, with SK, Flats, CarQ and Zoe in particular. 2 months later, Jayne quote tweeted his threads, stating there was no real change to his plan. Unfortunately though, he said he lost his old Twitch account permanently due to two-factor authentication and email domain issues, and that he doesn't have a place to stream from, but he was gonna let us know when he would start his new project. He follows up by clarifying how that the next project could be months or years away, saying how, on a daily basis, he thinks about returning to streaming, but that for now, it's not that feasible for him as he's rebuilding from scratch. With that being said though, fast forward to the first day of this year and Jayne is back, with a slight catch. He says his New Year's resolution is to maintain a 24-hour stream. Now you'll see why that phrasing is a little confusing, but Jayne stated that what he's starting today is not a finished product and it's going to iterate over time. He clarifies that he needs to make sure that this is the right decision for him and safe for him psychologically, but he welcomes everyone to tune in. The stream was predominantly a static camera and a view of him playing chess with some viewers alongside some chat interaction, but that was mainly it. No mic, no moving camera, no face cam, no vlog type thing going on, but as Jayne said, this was mainly just a start. I actually tuned in on the first day of his stream, and Jayne actually liked my video on him from 2 years ago, which I took as a big deal, considering that this guy was one of my biggest idols in 2018 and 2019. I would not be doing content creation without this man, so I'm very grateful for that. I also managed to get a screenshot of Jayne explaining to another viewer the issue with the Jayne show, or at least I assume it was the Jayne show, considering it did have a big production team behind it. He states that his stream is going to level out after a while, and that people are going to get bored of a static camera, but that after a few months, when things start to get rolling again, that's when he expects to see some growth, which would obviously make sense. There's also this slightly tragic comment at the end, where he says, anyone in chats is better than spending days alone, which I think speaks for itself. The only additional thing to mention is that on Reddit, there was a post that was concerned about how Jayne is still streaming, and that he's turned his chat off. This is where his initial tweet of him saying that he's going to maintain a 24-hour stream may have caused confusion, since I initially thought that this was just a single 24 hours, but no. Jayne has been going since the start of this year, so I assume and hope there's going to be changes coming in the next few weeks. And that is the comeback of Jayne. Well, kind of comeback. You can go check out the stream for yourself on his channel, and you will see that it's basically just a static camera. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below, and tell me how much you want Jayne to come back, so if he stumbles across this video, he can read your hopefully positive comments. And until next time,